Yes. And on the right hand side, you will be able to see all the questions which are coming. So that also will help us to do that. Of course, I will moderate that. So with that, welcome on board. It's Wednesday, rainy evening, but despite of all the rains and all and traffic issues, all four of us could manage to come on time. Welcome the audience. We had this last time and we had to reschedule because of a technical glitch. While we actually examined what the technical glitch was, we have ultimately found the reason that we got big stalwarts on this and network couldn't digest, such a kind of talent on one go. So here, let me introduce Revati Srinivasan, madam. She leads Singania School, and besides that, she's also instrumental in a lot of implementation of government policy. She helps on that. Sits on various advisory boards and has a great perspective about not only about the education but also the implementation and administration on that. On the other side, we have Leena Asher, founder of Kangaroo Kids, Billabong, somebody who ran chain of schools extremely proficiently, but more importantly, she did quite innovative experiments about education in with these chains, and now she does that through the communication to parents. I also have to support me Kumkum on the other side. She's going to be a parent representative, just as me also, and there's one more young person joined us, Man Sangvi, who's a student of grade 9, and also brings a student perspective. So that's where we are. And everybody has spoken a lot about new national education policy. There is a lot has happened. So today I'm going to take a backseat and I'm going to let both these speakers talk about it. And let me start with Leena to take her perspective on overall on national education policy, and then we can go to questions. So over to you, Leena. Especially on the national education policy as a whole, and then you can detail out one of the major questions that students have in terms of CCE coming into this. So. 10 plus 2 going away and eventually going to get replaced by 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4, so that 5 addition 5 actually adds the preschooling as well. Somebody who has continuously worked on that area and has a great domain expertise on that. How do you look at this change going in the future?
So I love the design of the national education policy. It's absolutely a great way forward. It's very much what we've been doing in Billabong High to date. Uh, so some of the things are just cursory in the sense if you take 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4, it's just a change in framework. But what does it actually mean in terms of execution is very important to see. It actually scaffolds learning because it sits well according to how Piaget puts its 4 stages of development. So yes, it's fundamentally positive. It's conceptually correct. The important thing is to see how it gets implemented. One of the great things is it removes the rigid learning structure for grade 1 and grade 2, which is, it should be very experiential and very active learning even in grades 1 and 2. Some of the things that I have concerns about is if you have 40 kids in a class, you really cannot be having an active learning, experiential learning sort of process going on. Just doesn't allow for it. So my issue largely is that we're very good at framing policy, but how do we take it from to execution is left to be seen. We brought in the RTE, we brought in CCE, we brought in a lot of forward-thinking thoughts and policies, but nobody actually took people like us, Revati should have been part of the policy framework. Teachers should have been part of the policy framework. Perhaps school operators like me should have been part of the policy framework, where we could have actually given ground reality. And then perhaps we could have framed the policy in a way that could be, executed correctly at where it actually matters, which is in our classrooms.
Absolutely.
Yeah, nice. So I think that's a clue for my further thing. And 10 plus 2, which we have been traditionally working with, and if you go back into the complete education policy right from 1835, which Lord Macaulay started, and ever since we have then followed, we have not made a fundamental change in that. And this policy now is going away and making way to 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4. So there is a fundamental change. Coming to Revati ma'am in terms of her overall view on that, and how do you see this transition happening from an execution point of view?
Uh, so as I see the policy, it is very, very comprehensive, looking at the overall development in the field of education. But rightly so, as Lina pointed out, I think much depends on how we execute it. One, it is top down, to in character. So what's really going to happen is that education being on the concurrent list, it will be left to the state government to execute it. And every state government may have its own perspective. And therefore, how are we going to implement it? And if we are looking at a kind of a common platform where we can bring all the schools together, uh, it's very going to be practically impossible in a country like India, because the kind of number of schools that we have, the areas that we are from, so all of that is going to be very, very difficult. When it looks, when we are looking at multi-entry, multi-exit points, when they're talking in terms of higher education, to a large extent, higher education needs to open up, because if I see school education, in pockets at least, there are lots of innovations happening, whereas in higher education, it's one shoe that fits all. So, to a large extent, I think this gives all higher education institutes an opportunity whereby they can open up research to allow a liberal arts. It's only now in the past maybe a decade or so liberal arts is coming in. But it now needs to get more popular, because then children will have a wide choice of subjects. And one of the reasons that Indian students want to study abroad is the fact that there is a lot of flexibility in the selection of courses. So I think that flexibility, we are bringing it back to India. I think it will work out very well. The concentration on research in higher education is another aspect that's beautiful. If we really practice research in our higher, educational institutes or in higher education, I think that's the way forward, because much of our studies has been purely theoretical. So working from the school level to the college level, we need to work on all of these. And I think we also have to start thinking in terms of, they have thought about a single regulatory board for higher education. I think it's a good system, but we need to understand that there are certain institutions that are already on levels of excellence. Okay, how are they going to become better? So it's not about leveling everybody. That's what I'm trying to say. You cannot level everyone. There are institutes that are doing very well. How are they going to be not just higher than what they were, rather than wait for the rest to come across? I would like to see that this is a good policy. We need to execute it well. One more thing that I think you'll come back to assessments a little later, I suppose. I'm sure you're having a question on
talk
it.
about that, but I think, if I hear loud and clear from both of you saying that the real crux of the matter would lie in implementation, how do we execute this entire thing, and then it would really get into. And the other day I was talking on one platform on this NEP, and I actually broke that down into 4 R's. Reach, relatable, relevance, and responsibility. And I'm going to come to relevance. What has happened over the last 34 years? Of course, there were no changes, and the jobs are changing. Jobs are not there, but whatever little jobs are remaining are also going through a transformation because of technology and because of all the changes around us. Research shows that all the jobs which are there today may not exist, or all the jobs which will be there are not known. So in this case, somewhere, especially looking at a school education, was becoming rather disjointed from the skills those are needed for future. And I don't know whether you see this policy as a chance to bring that relevance back to the future of skills, And here I would refer more towards life skills, vocational skills, and stuff like that. So rather than focusing on math, science, and social science, so I'm not against those subjects; those are important. But just confining our entire school education towards that, opening that to grooming children to bigger things. So your take, Lena, because you have done lots and lots of experiments in your school.
So you know what I see as a, a great way forward is I don't think we're going to have I don't think we're going to have the opportunity to sit still in this time. We've already seen how the world can get disrupted just by one little virus, and there's some magical stuff happening in the world that India may not even be aware of. First is if you look at all forward-thinking companies like Google, Apple, they don't care about your degree. They don't care about your grades in grade 12. And they actually don't care where you went to college. They will do an entrance interview based on the competencies and the EQ through the questions that they ask you. And, they have enough now strength to see whether you actually have a growth mindset or not. Do you actually have an optimistic mindset or not? Do you actually have a problem solving mindset or not? All the things that they're looking for, can you connect the dots in innovative ways, to come up with a solution or to come up with something else? So I don't think the world's waiting for CBSE and ICSE and Cambridge, the board, to sort of catch up. Things are going to get reinvented. The other thing that I'm very excited about, and I think we'll see more and more of it, there's a gentleman called Shai Rashef who's actually building a university. He's calling it the University of the People. It's a university for 100 million students. And you can get in, regardless what your grade and your score is. So we'll naturally go away from rote learning and regurgitating stuff for an examination, because the world's not waiting for CBSE, the world's not waiting for ICSE. It's changing, and either the boards keep up and the schools keep up.
To change.
Yeah. Otherwise, people like you will come up with the course that you're running on entrepreneurship, and there'll be more and more stuff like that in the world that kids can actually choose from. And kids will choose based on where they want to go and what they think is going to get them there. And it could be one course of yours, it could be a course from Udemy, it could be a course from a third platform. They will build their own, they'll personalize their own learning path, they'll go on it. And the beauty of that will be it will be intrinsically driven, because it actually speaks to them meaningfully about where they want to go.
Wonderful. So I'm going to bring, my young friend out here, Man Sangvi, who is in grade 9, but has a perspective on this. So whatever Leena said just now, is it like a music to ear? Do you people, when you talk among yourself, and forget about parents and teachers and us and all, when you talk among yourself about these changes and all, do you really think that is it going to happen, or should it happen that degrees don't matter, 10th and 12th marks don't matter. What matters is the skill. What's your take when you people talk about Man?
Yeah, so yes, it would be way better if what Lena Auntie says gets implemented and is in order. We would like that better, but again, right now, so suppose a person gets some above 90 percentage in grade 10th in their SSC, in their boards. That person, very few of them are the only people who learn based off the books. The other people, they also, people who get more than 90, they are focused on their co-curriculum, extra curriculum, and they are interested in all fields, not just academics. So in a way that is better for the mass majority, but for a few, or most rather, nothing much is going to change.
So you believe that
According to
this
me.
is the person who has an all-rounded personality would be much better than just focusing on acad. Here is Kumkum Jagdish. She is a parent and also a counselor, a child psychologist. How do you look at this entire jacketing students towards few subjects, languages, math, science, social sciences, for traditionally, and of course there are other subjects, but they are always extracurricular. time मिलेगा तो कर लेंगे, something which
Yeah.
is not very important, focus कर लो, 8th 9th
Yes.
10th में please don't listen to music, focus on that. So how do you see this, as a society, as a parent, are we ready for this kind of a change in mindset?
So for me, I really like this new education policy because it is looking at looking at a holistic approach. And while studies are important, even extracurricular activities are very important because those are the activities that help a child build their life skills. Okay, it helps a child gain confidence, and so something like this, I think, is looking at the holistic development of the child. And I feel, having this as the way forward is very important.
Okay, great. So I think you would believe that this is something which is important. Revati ma'am, I think there is also a perspective about here, and I think the appeal to audience. If you have any questions, please throw that. We can see your questions, and I would be happy to take these questions to the panel out here and seek answers. So please write that in the comment box, and we can actually see that. But while we wait for other questions, this life skill learning, which is outcasted now, and hopefully in another 2-3 years we'll see coming inside the school and going to get traditionally done. If you are at a policy level and you would like to give two bits on terms of how it should be executed in the school, naturally you can't have a book on life skills कि ये book है ये पढ़ लो and then this is going to be examination on that. How this entire learning pedagogy needs to be evolved? What's your thought on that?
So I believe that everything has to be experienced in order to believe in it. So for me, the way forward would be in experiential learning that is incorporated as a part of your curriculum, not and definitely not for marks. It's not going to be another paper to be attempted. Certainly not. But I've seen that when it becomes a part of your living, you see a purpose. And I think if children start seeing a purpose in why they are doing what they are doing, I think learning will happen. And therefore, for me, any aspect of a life skill has to be experienced, and therefore, and it has to be hands-on. So they have to do it in order to believe that yes, I like what I'm doing, and this is what I would like to learn. And so the why of and how of things come into being. So there is a purpose. When there is a purpose, I am driven by that purpose. And therefore, I will learn the skill. And I will learn the skill in order to practice that skill later on in life whenever the need comes. Okay, it could happen immediately and it can happen later. So it also sort of builds other skills like creativity, resilience, working with each other, because anything that you give as a team collaborated effort, or a project, then the children work together. So they sort of suppress differences that they have. They learn to live together. They learn to work and accept ideas of others. So the I, me, myself concept sort of gets shunned away. And I think that's the one beginning of good living that I think is very, very important for a child. The other thing that I feel it also learning happens when there's a transformation of experiences. So all the while, I have been told that this is how it is, full stop, either at home or in school. This is how it is. It's sort of dictated and sort of said, this is how you have. However, for example, the icons are on the screens is a kind of a myth. Okay, you and I know it, but children don't know because that's what they see and that's what they hear. Okay, but when they go back to the cricket field and a particular ball and a particular child who is not a big hero makes that one run, who is not even a batsman but makes that one run for the school, you have learned the first, he becomes the icon that day. So the icons are not on screen. So that's one lesson they learn. So which means that children will learn to accept reality very well. Today, children are looking at glamour. Children must understand that, and that is why they think that everything is all right, we can manage it. It's not like that. We need to build the resilience. They need to work through it. But even before a problem or a challenge comes before them, An adult will always intervene and take it away from him. Let them face it. Our games, all are things that we do in our sports period, teaches them not only values for life, but also teaches them how to handle a challenge in life. So let them play it rather than think about everything as an output, as a result, as Man rightly said, the 90%. It's not about that. It's about what I carry with me throughout my life. That's what I've learned. If I've forgotten it after I finish my chemistry in standard 9, it's not learned.
So I'll just expand on what Revati says, and I kind of believe we need to not just change our education system, but we have to change our parenting perspectives as well as change our ideology as a nation as a whole. Because if we're bringing up our kids all wrong from a parenting and a schooling perspective. Parents are playing an equal part in that. And what we're doing will never give us the outcomes we want. We teach them to compete with each other on the sports field, in the exams, and we reward them when they compete and they win. So and some parents even then start wanting to cheat to beat the system, and so we have to look at per se what are we teaching our kids in this achievement orientated characteristic in our schools and outside of our schools. Look, we pay so much of attention to people who've accumulated wealth. As Revati said, people on the screen or on the sports field who accumulated wealth, fame. And while we keep doing this, people will, cheat the tax system to accumulate greater amounts of wealth. So it's not just, it's a top down and a bottoms up change that we need, completely. And then we want to accumulate greater amounts of wealth because then we get protected by government, we all know that there's so much of corruption that exists even today that, I mean, how do we, that's just a vicious cycle where, and when kids see this, what are they going to do? Kids will always learn from what they see us do, all their adults, whether it's their leaders, their politicians, their parents, they're always going to learn from what they see us do, not from what we say is correct.
No, I agree. I think both of you have brought a topic, taken this discussion ahead. So it's not about a economic policy, education policy per se. It's a holistic perspective towards education and, upbringing of all the children out there. And I think one important thing, I'll share it from my own perspective. As parents today, generation say that we don't want to force any career on our children. So the only thing that we want to do is we want to expose them to a lot of things. So right from grade 2, grade 3, they'll put them on to Hajar classes, go to music, and after that go to karate, go to cricket, and come back and then do abacus, and then by night, till the time you break asleep, learn storytelling and so on and so forth. And as they grow from grade 3 to grade 8, we are forcing children, but over a period of time, children pick up a couple of things. I think I started loving guitar. Somebody says I started loving music. Somebody says I'm liking sports and all. But by the time 3-4 years, they start attempting to tell that to their parents. In 8th grade, we say, stop. Now that's done. Let's focus on examinations, get those marks. So children get so much confused into, you were the one who were pushing us to do that. And now that we are finding some streak in terms of doing something, we are completely getting cut off. So even parents, how they actually look at this entire perspective is extremely important. And from that perspective, look at, and that's the question which I wanted to throw to both of you, and you can give your perspective, is getting extra curriculum part of a curriculum, say music or dance or performing arts or coding, I'm leaving aside, but let's say this kind of a thing. But eventually as a society, we don't give value to those skills. We don't, and therefore somebody who has got 90% marks is going to be a scholar in our case, and somebody who's good at music is okay, fine, that's there. They're not going to get an equitable salary, they're not going to get equitable careers and all. Then again, as a society, we are pushing people back to so-called successful professions like medical, doctor, engineer, and so on and so forth. So how as a society, we also need to look at respecting skills beyond what is traditionally selling. And Revati, ma'am, can come on this, and then Leena, you can add your bit to that.
I think again, over here, I would say that it depends all on how we bring a culture of skilling in our schools and culture of respecting every aspect at homes. Both of this is very important. And when I'm saying skilling, I'm not talking about just skills, but I'm talking about culture of skillings, which means how do you learn to learn 100 things that you want to do? And how do you respect what you have learned for yourself? So everything need not be graded. The problem for all of us and in Indian society is that it's highly competitive for whatever reason. It's highly competitive and it's always a show of one-upmanship,
Hmm.
which I think um, it needs now to take a different view completely. Because we have to start understanding that when this pandemic came in, or any problem or any challenge that comes, what keeps us going is our skills. Okay? If we are not strong within ourselves, we are not able to face anything, right? At that point of time, nothing like your scores or any academic thing may help. Yes, if you have a natural inclination for academics, go for it. By all means, go for it, and develop some other interest as well. But if it's being forced, it's not going to stay with that person for long. As I mentioned, unless a child experiences something, he's not going to learn, and unless learning happens, there is nothing that's going to stay with him ever. So I think it's so important for all of us to remember that there is a requirement for a mindset change of mindset.
Hmm.
That's the first thing that we do. We always, as Lena rightly said, look at the outcomes. We praise the outcomes. Have we ever praised the efforts of the child? So I think we have to start doing that first. When we start praising the efforts of the child, has he moved from one level to level two? That's all that matters. And if I've done that, but unfortunately, that doesn't happen. We ask, what is your standing in the class vis-a-vis the other 40 children? That's the question. Okay. So the minute that comparison comes in, I'm all the time trying to better myself in, beating someone else. So how do I work towards bettering myself? Am I 5% better than what I did the previous time? Is a question that if every child asks. I'll give a simple example. I did this experiment about 6 years back and we continue with it. We had 3 trays in the class, okay, for grades 2 and 3. And one was red, one was amber, and the third one was a green tray. So after they do their assignments, or they don't have exams, but whatever they write, assignments or worksheet or what something, we ask the children to put, according to them, how they have done it, as their own work. So if you feel you've done it well, put it in the green. If you think you were just about okay about it, then put it in the amber tray. And if you think you've not done well, put it in the red. And what do you think the children did? Children put it all in the green at the first stroke, because according to them, they have all done it well.
Correct.
But when the teacher started to see it, she had to place them in different trays. Maybe within a week's time, children understood where they stood. That's a point of self reflection of your one's own work. And I think if children know and what they don't know, they start working on it by themselves. And I think that's the beginning of self learning. I think it needs to come to a point of self learning and self directed learning. There has to be intrinsic motivation. It cannot be promoted by parents or adults or teachers all the time. We can't keep telling children, study, study. The onus of learning has to be on the children. And for that, it is a responsibility of the school to make it as interesting as it can by multiple sources like role play and various experiences that you can give the child, and for parents to accept their child as he or she is.
So on
So,
that, let me come back to Kumkum, and I'm going to come back to Lina after that. But Kumkum, as a parent, what Revati
yeah.
said is absolutely palatable, and this is something that has to happen. We all are eagerly waiting when that can actually happen. But as a parent, the question always comes to your mind. Then ultimately, marks are the ones which are going to get counted. 10th kitna mila, that's the admission, and then whether I'll get into engineering or this school and that. So our parents, from a parent mindset,
Yeah.
are they ready to go away from this entire mark syndrome? And what does it take to go there?
Yeah, so as a parent and with a parenting mindset, I think right now it's very difficult to go away from this marks syndrome, because right now it is important. It is important that your child scores well to get into a particular college, or your child scores well to further their goals, because that is how the system is right now. So no matter how broad minded a parent is, and no matter how you want to push your child to do other things, you still have that fear in you. For example, my son loves playing football, and he has told me that don't think of me as going to 8th, ninth, 10th, because at the age of 14 I can get into a football academy and I'm going to start playing football for the rest of my life. But for me, it's very scary. I'm like, no, no, I think your studies are also important. So, and I tried giving him examples of all the different footballers who have not studied and who are studying now, because they feel studies, they missed out on something when they didn't study. So, as a parent, it's a little difficult for me to let go, because, that's the environment we have been brought up with as parents. But if something like this, if there's a change in the system like this, for us as parents also, we can sort of let go and probably relax a bit, try different things. So while we are encourage him to for football, but at the same time we're like, I think studies are also important. So
So that is where I think this entire dichotomy, and that's why I'm going to come to Lena and I'm going to build that construct. School, to my mind, and let me be a bit harsh on that. To my mind, it's a product of an industrial revolution. The way school construct is, and to that extent, it has become assembly line. We are knowledge provider. You bring your children, we will give what we have. We don't care whether he's good at music or dance and all. We'll teach him certain subjects from grade 1 to grade 10, and we will make them proficient in that and give them marks and go ahead. Whether he was good at X, whether he was good at Y, that's not happening. Don't you think that entire construct has to change from giving to actually understanding the self-reflection of a child, that in these 10 years where the child spends in the school, at the end of the day they should only realize what is their true potential. And as long as there's a school, we are uh, uh, we are there to confirm that, or explore, help them to explore their potential. That's good enough. That's the system that we should get into. Do you think, subject to given this NEP or anyone for that matter, do you think we are moving towards that? Should we move towards that, or if yes, are we moving towards that?
So I'm going to just speak to Kumkum for a minute.
Yeah.
As a mother, I'm a mother and an educator as well. Kumkum, given your psychology background, what's the number one need that every human being has?
the number one need.
Mm-hmm.
So if you look at the basic needs, is just comfort, food, water, shelter,
The
feeling
number
love.
the number one need that anyone
Yeah,
has is to
yeah,
feel in control of their own life. They need
yeah.
to feel autonomy. So the minute you speak to your son in a way that is taking away his autonomy, you're doing him the biggest disservice possible. So I want you to think about this deeply again as a psychologist. Is it EQ or IQ that's going to be a bigger determiner of your son's life success?
I think definitely EQ.
Okay. So
So,
I'm a mother and an educator. Yeah.
mhm.
My son grew up with very active. Some people will call it hyperactive. I'll say he was just very active, and he needed to move to learn. Yeah, when he was in Australia, he was studying there. He was doing reasonably well, and I'm not talking about academically, but I'm talking about in taking onus and responsibility of running the samosa club and doing all these things outside of the domain of studies. When he was forced to come to India and he went to Ecole Mondiale, I allowed him to fail year 12. He just came out with a diploma. Now, you could look at me as an educator and say, Lena, that's not great. But I will walk my talk. And I will tell you today, my son runs 5 companies and he's doing financially incredibly well. And he's doing socially and emotionally incredibly well. He is looked upon by all his peers as a leader. Nobody wants to have a social scene without him. And he is compassionate. He is caring. So while I'm in Goa today and my father's not well, he's gone to look after my father in Bombay. He's everything EQ intelligence would say he should be. I'm just saying to you that if you, as a psychologist, understand number one human need is for autonomy and agency and voice and choice. If you take that away from your son, you're doing him the worst disservice as a psychologist and as a mother. And I would say that as an educator. You know, I have a boy I did a podcast with yesterday. When he was in grade 5, his mother came to me saying his marks are really bad and he cannot focus and I said, can I spend 10 minutes with his son? And his name is Kunal. I spent 10 minutes with him. At the end of that, I told his mom, you know, the problem is he's a genius.
Mm-hmm.
And today he was telling me yesterday on the podcast, Miss Lena, how did you let go of Kangaroo in Billabong High? Because I got a $1 million offer for my company and I couldn't let it go.
Mm.
Jumping out of grade 12, he's gone on to build businesses. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have to understand where the real secret source of success is. It's not in the marks. And
Yes.
why I started off saying that I'm really optimistic about the world is because there are people like Chai Rashid who understand that and who are building these universities, which will take the pressure off you as a mother.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, definitely. Yes.
But given anything, you have to give your son voice, choice, agency, autonomy. Otherwise, you will,
Definitely. Yes.
yeah. So another thing I just like to kind of talk about, that you spoke about as a country, yeah, that we have these things. So what we have to understand that kids understand the visible and the hidden elements of what we say. So when we say, um, you know, um, respect doesn't come from a title, and then we force the kids to call us sir and ma'am, something that the British Raj thrust upon us. They don't understand it. They will go by what they see us do, not what we say.
Yeah.
So they will say, yes, respect comes from the title, it comes from sitting on a chair, and it comes from being called sir and ma'am. So we've really got to understand this, that, as a nation, we protect our visible elements. I don't know if you know this, but in Australia, you can wear the Australian flag on your bum, you can wear it on your chappals, you can wear it anywhere. And yet you don't have people running around throwing papers on the street. So, what are the real depths of showing respect, cultural identity? So it's chair, position, flag, anthem. Stand up for the anthem. Stand up for the flag. But it doesn't matter if you don't pay your tax money. It doesn't matter if you throw rubbish on the street. So we've got to go deeper into our education system to understand, all the grays we operate within this country. Even schools. Why did I do it? There's black, white, and gray. You allow private schools, and then you try and take away autonomy and agency. You allow private schools, but you say you can't make a profit. Where do we get money from to build schools? So there's all of this gunk in this country that needs to be cleaned out.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much. That was really nice to hear from an education perspective of it. And yes, I agree with you totally.
So that's a very nice perspective, Leela. So I'm again coming back to that point that when do we how do we see schools transforming into a place where child feels absolutely comfortable and tries to be on his own, and that's the point even Riti ma'am made, that they should be absolutely comfortable.
Open up. Let private schools exist. Let competition exist. Let people, at the moment, I know, Revati, you ran the Singhania school, right?
Yes.
You have a wait list of some 5,000 students every year.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Why do we allow that to happen? And then the school will want to 100% results. We got this topper in our school and this topper in our school. We have to walk the talk. If we say We don't, that EQ matters more than IQ. If we say we want to respect the effort and not the awards and the accolades and the scores, then we have to walk that talk. The media has to walk that talk. The media can't say this school, this school has this topper and this school has this topper. We have to actually talk about this school came from here and it actually improved what it's doing to up to here. That's when you'll start encouraging effort rather than outcome. It's only when we encourage process rather than product, the journey rather than an outcome, will people start changing and open up. What are we scared of? What are we scared of allowing private schools to exist? I got out of it because, I'm always in that gray zone. I'm running a public trust and a company, and then I have to take funds this way because how do I get investments otherwise? Let it all open up. It'll all find its way, and tax the schools and use that money for education. I just don't understand it. You're
So that,
allowing us.
even Devti ma'am was making some time back that, allow the competition and allow, the best come into the, in the forefront, so that as you allow competitions in the market, as you allow, the best selling in the market, then, people will get the best out of it. Man, we actually made you silent for quite some time. So how do you see this from student perspective, because that's where you are going to go in the future. So looking at autonomy, or what would you like to do, is something which will be asked to you, not forced by the society or by the school. How do you see that kind of a shift?
That would be a very great shift. So let's face it, each and every one of our students at least want to be known as a winner. Okay, we want to succeed and experience success. So right now, as you said, we are only focusing on math, science, and subjects like that. Like suppose there is a child that is excellent at music, but he doesn't get enough recognition compared to the person who is topping in their board exams.
Yeah.
So that takes a toll on how that person is thinking, and in turn, he kind of loses his talent, and he's like, nobody cares about music. Why shall I? I'll also divert my attention towards studies. So India is not able to come up in different aspects. India as a nation is not able to flourish because of this ideology and mindset.
Man, can I ask you a question? What is your definition of success?
Yeah, I was just about to say this, asking the
Okay,
same.
so success would basically mean other humans, your friends, your parents, your relatives appreciating you. So suppose my somebody who is my distant relative, he comes to me and says, you know what, I loved your music, you should pursue it. And I'll be like, yes, this guy said something, I'm on the right track.
So,
It's a positive feeling from inside.
so
Gratification.
Kumkum, I want to ask you now to respond to him as a child. Um, should children not be given unconditional positive regard and respect and love, regardless of how they're doing? So is it man? Man?
Yeah, man. Yeah.
What Man is almost saying is that his definition of success is appreciation and validation from people outside of himself. Now
Yeah.
that's something we've set up for Man as a parent and as educators. Man, that is not
Yeah.
correct. You've been given
Yeah.
you've been given the wrong notion of success. I want to tell you what real success feels like. Yeah, real success feels like that you found your inner passion and interest. That every day when you wake up in the morning, you're just raring to go because what's driving you is just like it rocks your world. Every day when you go to work, it doesn't feel like work, it feels like play. That's real success. That you're contributing to the world because you know you're leaving the world a better place. That is success. We've got the wrong notions of success, Virat.
Yeah, so I would like to add to Lina. Lina, you're totally correct. One success is what you feel inside for yourself, not what other people feel about you. So success is like Lina was saying that having control of what you want to do. being able to do those things that make you happy because you are happy doing those things, and not because somebody else is appreciating you or somebody else wants you to do those things. And
But
for me,
Kumar,
that is that.
So
I'd
on,
like to make a point here.
on
Son is only 13 years of age. He is seeing success the way the society is acknowledging success.
correct,
So
correct.
obviously, he is going to be understanding that. That's why I say it is a society that needs to have a change of the mindset for everything that we do. Because as adults, we have to be the best that we can and understand everything in the right perspective, because children are going to see us like that, and the way they see the society, that's how they are going to be acting or reacting.
Wonderful. So I think there is a immediate rectification of what exactly we spoke, and that has come out. So I think as a society we have to change our own thought process towards this. So there's one question which is being asked is about, we spoke about parents, we spoke about school, we didn't speak about teachers, and teachers play a very important role, a pivotal role for that matter. So how do we get those right set of teachers with those mindset who will not only be teachers, but they'll be able to facilitate this entire process of nurturing a child from grade 1 to whatever, but grade 10, but ultimately they'll be able to identify the inner self of their, they'll be able to understand their own passion. How do you see this role of a teacher, and how do you see as a policy maker or as a school owners, how do you see this entire transition from current teachers to the teachers that we would look at? Revati ma'am, and then Leena, both of you.
Okay, for me, I think a teacher should not come in there because she needs a job, because that's not something that a teacher can be. A teacher has to be someone who is highly enthusiastic about doing what she's doing, loves what he or she does, and also is prepared to take on the challenges that come by the way. For the school as an institution, I think it's so important for us to do constant kind of talks, workshops, training. And I'm not talking about training which is, on one to all kind of training. It's more of the mentorship that I'm talking in terms of, because then you're highlighting the individual qualities of every teacher, bringing it out, and you can also sort of negate the negatives, and then how to convert that into a positive. So that's how one has to be. But I see teachers are, I mean, at least now, if we were to see, I can see people who will survive and do very well are people who are going to be very enthusiastic, energetic, very committed to the role that they are playing. Okay, so I think that's what it is. We still have some teachers like that, and I'm really, really happy that we still have teachers who are so dedicated and so committed. But I think there has to be an element of fun in every teacher. Very important for the child to connect to that teacher. He's nodding his head, Man, so I think he realizes that too. Okay, yes, Man, I know you all love teachers who love fun. Okay, they get there's so much that they can learn, because I do have teachers who play basketball with children, and you see them walking across in the corridor. These students will really come across to those teachers so lovingly, and they are prepared to listen to everything that the teacher says. It all goes to say that if you are one with them, understand them, talk to them, it works well. So you need a teacher who's very compassionate today, and you have to have a teacher who is a lifelong learner. She should be able to, or he should be able to correct himself, keep learning all the time. I think that's what it is, and I think that comes out of a lot of exposure. Giving teachers a lot of exposure in a variety of situations is extremely important, because that's what's going to bring out the best in each of the teachers. So many of the teachers would have told in many schools that I am good with my technology, but I'm not so good that I can do complete online courses. And they are the ones who are most creative with their online sessions. So how did that happen? That happened because they were willing to do it. So that willingness to change, willingness to try out something new has to be there. And I think that when there is passion and there is an effort towards making that passion visible, I think you will have magic on classroom. But on the whole, I think the teacher has to be an actor, dancer, drama person, sports person. She should have She should be the magician. She should be the magician. That's what I think.
Lina, your take?
So there's a theory which is a research document called the self-determination theory, which says for a student to do well, he needs three things, right? So autonomy is actually number one, the one that we already spoke about. The second one is relatedness, meaning he can actually relate to the curriculum. And the third is competency. And as part of relatedness, he has to actually like his teachers. Now, there's a few problems. One is we need to stop giving teachers gold coins because they get the toppers in their class, because that's still largely what's going on. The second thing, we actually have to understand that our teachers have not gone through a creative um, EQ kind of curriculum, not in their journey at school, and neither have they been taught it at university. So yes, we have to keep on investing in training. So again, I come back to what I'm saying is that if we don't open up the ability for schools to expand and actually make, who wants to keep on investing in teachers? You know, you'll go by the document that says you need such and such, B.Ed or M.Ed or whatever it is, and you'll hire accordingly. Where is the incentive to keep educating teachers within a system? CEOs invest in their team because it's going to make a difference to the top line and the bottom line. We have great principals like Revati who actually are really passionate about education, but at the end of the day, we still want some amount of financial.
I think she broke away.
Am I on or okay?
Yeah, now we can hear you.
So as a society, till we shift what we see as success, it's just largely open. What I'd love to see at the federal level and at the state level is who, what, when. If this is what you're saying is going to happen, who's going to do it, what's actually going to happen, and by when. And that includes training and everything else that's in the document.
So I think that's again an important perspective. And I'm so I since childhood I always had this question, and to be very honest, it is not yet solved. We always say that you have done a lot of fun, now let's study. Okay, बहुत मजा कर लिया, बहुत खेल लिया, अभी now you study. And sometimes we say, अरे you have studied a lot, now let's have little fun. So we always segregate fun, enjoyment, and study, so much so that we actually make them poles apart, and create that kind of this thing that study is something which is absolutely serious. It has to be done in a structured way. Fun is something which is time pass, something which you're anyway wasting time, kind of a thing. Is there any play? And I think the new education policy talks about it, is gamification of entire process. Where do you see the place for this entire a game? And gamification doesn't only mean that using games as activity. How do we create that entire process of learning enjoyable, gamified for children, so that that becomes so even if they spend 8 hours in the school, that's the fun that they have done. There is no extra fun that they need to recoup themselves and all. So Revati ma'am, how do you see this entire process of gamification coming in the school?
Unfortunately, it should not be seen as screen space again, and a debate will continue. So I'm a little cautious about that. But let me tell you, there's just no one way of keeping the child interested. Ask any child, even with games, even with any kind of a fun way of learning through technology, they can get bored. So learning can happen only if there are and you have to use multiple strategies, whether they are in school or whether they are online. So I think let's just look at experiential learning, and all of us start looking at, if at all we are looking at assessments also, we make our assessments very creative. So gamification is used in order to test children's knowledge. So you have games, right? But my worry is we use all creative way strategies to test them without using creative strategies to teach them. So, are we teaching them to think differently? Are we teaching our children to critically evaluate something? Without doing any of those, when we set a question paper and we say it was a very interesting paper and it was fun setting that paper, did the child have that same amount of fun answering that paper? No. Why? Because he is not, it was kind of a, jolt from the blue that came across to him. Okay. So nothing is fun as long as you use, or nothing is meaningful, I would put it like that, as long as there is fun, there is wonder, there is curiosity that's satiated, and of course there is certain amount of critical thinking and sort of making someone interpret a question. I think all of these throw challenges to children, and children actually thrive on challenges. So for me, gamification is a good methodology, but you cannot use it every time. That's my point. Nothing can be used the same way all the time. I think you need to
That
keep on
monotony has to be broken. It can't be
has to be
monotony.
broken. And there are times that you have to just use a lecture, but you can use a lecture also differently. You can even have just a discussion. You can have a flipped classroom once. You can have hundreds of ways. Children as young as 6 can do mind maps brilliantly. I've seen that in my own school. So, what I'm trying to say is that no one strategy will work. You need to come out with a whole lot of new strategies, and sometimes get children to evolve their own strategies. Ask them, are we listening to their voices? Are we hearing you? No. Because if you ask them, how is it that you want me to take this particular unit, they'll come up with 101 ways that you can do it.
So, Sushil, my expertise is in the area of design, instructional design, right? So I use
Cool. We lost you, Lean, I think.
so instead of teaching kids to say that, go and learn about the digestive system from the textbook, I'd actually ask them that a murder has taken place. Sorry, I think my internet's bad. I said I'll tell kids that a murder has taken place. The detective comes. He calls the forensic scientist, and the first thing the forensic scientist does is examine the contents of the stomach. Now, using your understanding of the digestive system, estimate the time of death, right? And give them different forms of what's sitting in the stomach. And another way is, Revati said, teaching perspective. Instead of saying that this is the partition in your Indian textbook, I would say that this is the Indian partition textbook. Now you have to rewrite this chapter.
I think there's bad internet at her end, and we're losing her out.
They have to understand the politics of education. So there's there's exciting ways of teaching kids.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's that. Yeah. So I think that's the point. I think we have to create that excitement all along, break that monotony. Whether it is gamification, whether it is even lectures, even good lectures can be actually which would be good if they are used powerfully.
Very simple way to do it. I've given a TED talk on this. Instead of asking what and when, ask why.
Yeah, correct.
Change every single question to why, and kids will be engaged. Why did so many people follow Hitler, and why did the gas chambers happen? Kids will be totally engaged.
True.
And I think they need to get related also. See, they need to be involved in that. Only then that the ownership comes in.
Absolutely. I mean, children have to own. I mean, it's not that they are coming to the school and they have been given something. That actually they should be part of that process, and to that extent, the school should become a child-centric. I mean, currently it's all centered around the institution, the grounds, and the building and all. I think somewhere what every child counts. So I think that's one point I want to bring it, and probably then we can end the session because we're already 60 minutes done. Is standardization versus personalization. I mean, the way again this entire construct had happened, and I know Leela is laughing at it. the entire way the construct of schools again happen, historically, it's basically standardization. Exams are standardized, schools are standardized, curriculums are standardized, and in this process, people who have different skills do it. They completely get uh, choked to that. I mean, I'll assume a scenario where we go to a salon and we are asked to do a standard haircut. Everyone, it's sometimes actually it scares me to that extent. How do we play that balance between this entire standardization and personalization?
So
How do we be centric?
standardization has to exist when you've got such a huge population, because it's the only effective way, for example, to check papers. Either you have to have a quality an examiner paper checker that's so high that you can ask creative questions. Otherwise, you can only ask convergent questions. Every question can only have one single answer. That's the only way to have an effective testing system. I've actually gone away. I mean, so while my curriculum, instructional design, was highly innovative, I believe that the future is all about personalization. I'm starting a school in Goa for only 200 kids, where every child coming in will have a designed learning path only based on his goals, his interest, and his conviction.
True. But that, I think, what you're doing is extremely right. But how do we see that scaling? I mean, instead of 2 lakh students, we have 24 crore students in India. How do
So
we?
you can only, if you embrace screens and digital education, can you have a personalized path. So we all have to embrace, and I see nothing wrong with screens. I see nothing wrong with the digital world. We all have to embrace that and move ahead in that direction.
Man, what do you think? I mean, is it like the standardization versus personalization? So what I mean by that, to simplify, is having everybody same curriculum and everybody. So you don't like math, but still you have to learn trigonometry, right?
No, that's not it. Man, I'll ask you to you.
Yeah.
The difference is that you study the same history textbook as everybody else, or you look at a specific time in history that's specifically that you're interested in, and we look at what we need to teach through history based on what you are deeply interested in.
Correct.
So that would be easy enough. Like suppose I'm in place of a teacher or something. I just that you said that exact moment in time, that exact uh, whatever happened then. So I asked the whole class that who is interested in this. I separate them out. So that particular batch is only this thing. So that way, there's a certain amount of standardization. Also, each and everyone is getting a personal attention that this is what I want to do. So you put like-minded people together. That you do by giving choices early on.
See, Man should have been part of the national education policy. It's supposed to be for him. Why is he not on the panel?
Absolutely. So that's, I think, we can't actually talk for the government, but at least I can talk for Empower. We have set up children advisory board, so they actually advise us. They look at the products, they understand what needs to be done. We actually show it to them. They have every right to say that this product is useless because we don't want to force that product. And once it passes the muster from them, then actually we go and market that. I agree with Lina. I mean, it has to be done at a policy level where they should be able to create the world for themselves. I think the time is up. It's already 1 hour and we have spoken so many things. I think doing a justice in just 1 hour on the topic as broad as national education policy is extremely difficult. We just took a narrow perspective, but even in that, we looked at perspective from parents, from society, from schools, to teachers, to students, and there's a lot to speak about it. And I'm sure if we go on, we'll speak for about 5 years. And looking at the energy of Revati ma'am and Dina, I'm sure they can speak for hours. But thank you very much for being part of this. It was wonderful. I think a lot of perspective. So we deliberately wanted this discussion not to happen on structure things, whether this policy is good, bad, implementation. All we wanted to go a level below and understand what is important for a child, what is important for constructing ultimately for them. So in that case, there are a lot of insights that have come from both of you, Kumkum in a way, Man had contributed. Thank you very much for being on the panel. I'm sure you would have loved the discussion. Thanks very much, audience, for joining us. And I mean, this is already available as a live on all three channels, so you can have a look at any point of time. And if you have any questions, even post facto, reach out to us. We'll try to answer them best by going back to the experts. So thank you, Revati ma'am, for making it available yourself available. Thank you, Leena. Always wonderful talking to both of you, and thank you, Man.
Man, you're a rock star.
Yeah, Man, it was wonderful to listen to you. Wonderful you keep that going.
Yeah.
And thanks, Kumkum, for being a part of it. We love meeting each other again. Okay.
Thank
So,
you.
thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Now,
Thank you, everybody.